Hello, my name is Rowlands and I'm a nutritional balancing practitioner. If you'd like to send in a question for me to answer live on YouTube, please send me an email to lewis@deephealingspace.com. At the moment I'm answering these questions for free, but if you enjoy the questions and you would like to support the channel, please feel free to send a donation to www.paypal.me/Lewis Rowlands. Thanks. So I got a few questions today. The first email is quite a long one, so I'm going to go through it quite slowly. So bear with me, but it's quite an interesting one. So here we go. For the diet, there are things which I suspect won't work well for me. Now, initially, I can tell from this person's email that the person's questioning the program quite a lot. And in general, if you question the program too much, generally it won't work too well. It's important to realise that the program's been developed over around 40 years and it's very, very refined, and it's refined for a reason. Some healthy scepticism's good, but if you think that other things you can add into the program because that's how you are, then generally it doesn't work. Things like, if you're really sensitive to sugar, then obviously we can kind of work out different diets and stuff that can suit you more. But as you'll realise as I'll go through this particular email, some of the things that this particular client is wanting to integrate, in my opinion, is not going to work. So that's just me being honest from my experience. So at this stage, I know how I handle food and liquid. A diet with 70% cooked veggies, low starch and up to 3 litres of water a day is an absolute recipe for me to crash daily. So a lot of people are suffering from adrenal burnout, and a lot of the reasons why is because they use carbohydrates to fuel themselves. I'm not sure if you're aware, but the body isn't designed to use high amounts of carbohydrates to fuel itself. In reality, it's actually designed to use fats and oils and proteins as its main source of fuel. Actually, a lot of people use carbohydrates and simple sugars to fuel themselves these days, and the DNA has to physically change for the body to process that. So these people are kind of running on this empty fuel. It's not really fulfilling, doesn't fulfill you from the inside, and you get burnt out. Like this client is very, very burnt out. He's got some very extreme symptoms, and there is a likelihood that as you eat a diet that's actually appropriate for the human being, that this person's energy will drop, just like mine did, and just like a lot of other clients does. And that's not a bad thing. That's actually the body. That's actually the body's inner exhaustion coming out to the surface. If you're burnt out, you have to rest and you have to heal, and there's no way of dealing with that unless you can feel that exhaustion and you allow it to come out. It's the only way of doing it. If you're burnt out, if your body's burnt out and you've got all these symptoms and you feel like that you're going to start a program that's just going to keep your energy levels up, then it's probably a very unwise way of looking at things, because in my opinion, that's not how healing works in general. For example, I can't have too much liquid in the morning, otherwise I get cold hand, feet, and I pee clear in the next 30 minutes. Again, I think the reason why you're getting cold hands and feet if you have too much liquid is because the body is burnt out, basically. You don't have to drink a lot of liquid in the mornings. You can kind of even it out throughout the day, which will make things easier. But this particular person mentions that their pee is clear if they drink too much liquid, and that's actually not a bad sign. It's your pee should be pretty clear in general, with a slight tinge to it. That is actually a healthy pee. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. I usually need a big amount of carbs and less protein in the morning to get me going and raise body temperature, usually cooked potatoes. So again, it's important to realise that this person has come to me because they're feeling bad and tired. Well, not tired and sick. and derealization, brain fog, all these things. And I'm here to say that the reason why you're feeling like this is probably because the way that you like your lifestyle and your diet. So if you're running on carbohydrates, this is what you're currently using as a stimulant, in my opinion, to get yourself through the day. But it's an unhealthy way of doing it. And unfortunately, when you've burnt out the body to an extent, you need these stimulants and these high carbohydrates just to keep going. But you know that you've got problems, otherwise you wouldn't come to practitioners, healing practitioners, in order to get help. So all I'm saying is that it's not a wise way of doing it, and you are likely to feel tired if you was to change things. I felt absolutely exhausted. I've got a couple of videos, how long did it take to get my energy back, getting through the initial stage of the nutritional balancing program, which explains that in a little bit more in depth. I know from experience that at this stage, if I don't include generous amounts of carbs and low liquid, I crash and I feel awful. And again, that is actually, in my opinion, it's a good sign. It's not a crash, it's just you have stopped stimulating yourself in an unhealthy way, and the body, one, is you're feeling the exhaustion, and two, you're having to go through a process where the body is relearning where to get its energy from. I have plenty of energy, it's not an issue for me really as it used to be, and I eat this diet, and and I've got a good brain and everything works fine, so it does work. And in the beginning of the program, again, I really struggled with energy when I started it, but it was I needed to go through that in order for my body to heal. The food classification of Dr. Wilson is a bit puzzling. For example, in Chinese medicine, most veggies are yin and animal proteins are yang. Cooking vegetables makes them yanger, but it's not enough to turn the nature of one food from yin to yang. So I think it's important to realise that nothing's yin and nothing's yang. The reason why we have the yin and yang symbol with the two dots in between in each one is because everything has a little bit of yin and everything has a little bit of yang. So we're not changing our food from yin to yang. It's impossible to do that. No food is solely yin and no food is solely yang. One's a little bit more yin with some yang and a bit more yang with some yin. So what we're trying to do is just make it a little bit more yang. That's the idea behind that. So also it's important to realise that Dr. Wilson uses, Chinese medicine, yin and yang is a little bit different to macrobiotics, yin and yang. So he uses the macrobiotics type of yin and yang as well, which can confuse you a little bit. Furthermore, pressure cooking is high temperature cooking and destroys nutrients much more than steaming, for example. I disagree. Things like baking, roasting, frying, stir frying, it actually involves very high temperatures that damages the food more. Pressure cooking actually involves only a slight increase in the temperature of cooking, because the pressure is what does the cooking, not necessarily the temperature. It's the pressure. That's important to realise. So I disagree with that particular comment. He calls macrobiotics in, but macrobiotics is all about grains as the basis of diet, which he completely removes. Another important staple of macrobiotics is also the use of gummasio, which is not mentioned in Dr. Wilson's diet. In the Yellow Book of the Emperor, a more traditional take on Chinese medicine, the precious grains and beans were a staple. The 6 cereals, including rice, millet, broomcorn, sorghum, wheat and wild rice stem. The 6 animals were the horse, cow, sheep, pig, dog and chicken. The 6 clears were water. So yeah, this guy basically is trying to explain to me about macrobiotics and Chinese medicine. What I need to kind of explain is that Dr. Wilson's diet isn't Chinese medicine and it isn't macrobiotics. So this client is trying to tell me that what Dr. Wilson is doing is not macrobiotics or Chinese medicine. That's true. You know, it doesn't do that. So don't look for him. Don't look for that in the diet, because you're looking at it wrong. He uses aspects of Chinese medicine and macrobiotics in his diet. So if you check out his macrobiotics article, you'll see his explanation, and he says quite clearly that yes, macrobiotics does use a lot of grains and beans, etc., but he doesn't use them, and this is the reasons why. You know, so please realise that nutritional balancing diet isn't based on Chinese medicine 100%. It isn't based on macrobiotics 100%. It's a hybrid. Also, you know, this guy kind of seems to know a lot about Chinese medicine diet and macrobiotics, and I'm assuming that this person's probably tried it and it's not worked. You know, so it's probably not a good idea to argue that this diet isn't that, because if you tried it and it doesn't work, then obviously you need to try something else, and this is something else. You know, that's important to realise. Certainly Chinese are big on using all animal proteins, and especially pork. I definitely wouldn't recommend pork. I think it's a terrible food. Lard, for example, is the food highest in vitamin D if it comes from healthy/pastured animal. If Dr. Wilson looks for ways to have good vitamin D and low mercury, he should recommend pastured organic lard over sardines. I disagree. I think lard is a terrible food. All food from pig products are not good. That's the reason why a lot of it's in religious texts. You know, most pig products contain cysts and parasites, even from healthy pasteurized animals. Even if it's well cooked, it's still in there. Mainly because of the yin diets of pigs, which is not good. So I wouldn't do it. It definitely slows down development if you're using lard. Frankly, it's pretty dangerous. So I wouldn't. That's not a good. It's not a good way to look at things. So if he wanted to follow a Chinese medicine philosophy, which he doesn't, so this section's probably not very useful. He would advise stir frying among other methods of cooking. Stir frying is actually a method that we recommend a little bit. You know, we'd recommend pressure cooking, but stir frying is not that bad. So he does recommend that. Use of organic lard, which I've mentioned, not a wise idea. Using rice. Most rice today is actually toxic with arsenic, so we stay away from rice at the moment. Millet and other grains is a staple diet. We use millet and we do use other grains, but it's not staple. That's explained in the macrobiotic diet article. The Chinese medicine logic would be proportion with grain, veggies, animal proteins. So yeah, he doesn't use traditional Chinese medicine. So you know, there's no point in me trying to explain that. I agree that grains are hard to digest for most people with compromised health and gut. Still, Chinese medicine has a solution for it. Boiling rice for hours. Again, rice is not a good food today, unfortunately. Too full of carbohydrates, which I mentioned before. Replacing the starch by cooked veggies only is a good way to crash for some people. Again, people aren't crashing. They're having to go through a process of feeling this inner massive amounts of exhaustion, mainly because the person's been using carbohydrates as fuel, which in my opinion is not the right way for the body to use fuel. There's loads of scientific studies, and especially in our past, if you look at our past, humans did not use carbohydrates as their main source of food. There just wasn't enough in the environment. It was mainly from fats and proteins and oils, and you get some carbohydrates from vegetables. It's a whole idea behind ketosis and stuff. It's just our DNA literally has to change if we're running on carbohydrates all the time. This is one of the biggest reasons why people come to nutritional balancing, because they've been fueling themselves off carbohydrates all the time. He totally overlooks the important amounts of dense food most people with subclinical hyperthyroidism, I'm not sure, need to sustain their body temperature and metabolism. I don't think most people have subclinical hyperthyroidism. Definitely subclinical hypothyroidism, but not hyper. The big amount of starch is used in Chinese medicine and macrobiotics to fuel and sustain the body's metabolism. Certainly not something achieved with boiled veggies, stir-fried spices. I'm not too sure, really. I mean, if this person is so, knowledgeable about Chinese medicine and macrobiotics, then I assume they've tried it and it's not worked. So, excuse me if I'm incorrect, but, arguing against that doesn't make sense to me. But again, I need to keep reiterating myself that Dr. Wilson doesn't use Chinese medicine or macrobiotics. It's a difference between the two. So I'm going to kind of skim through the rest of the email, see if there's any other questions, to stop, so I don't keep repeating myself. For myself, I found the solution by making potatoes and sweet potatoes my staple. I'm not sure what solution you're trying to get at, because if that was the solution, then you would be feeling good, and you're not feeling good. So that doesn't make sense to me. But I hear his arguments about those foods being too yin, so we'll see how I get along on this diet. But I doubt it'll provide me enough body temperature and a fast metabolism daily. We're not looking for a fast metabolism. If you've got a fast metabolism, it's unhealthy. Most people that are in a fast metabolism are in a fast metabolism because they're stressed. So if you're seeking out this program to give you a fast metabolism, it's probably not the right program for you. If I pee clear, I am cold all day, I am not exactly thriving. This is a sign that my body tries to concentrate blood sugar as I don't get dense food enough. I disagree. Reason why I suspect I'll need to adapt this diet at first until I can use it more about a few months on supplements. So, all in all, I would say to this person that that it seems to me that there's a lot of questioning going off, and some questioning's good, but my gut feeling is this person is probably gonna struggle on the program. I hope they can push through it, and I hope they can realise that running on carbohydrates and trying to seek out fast metabolism is probably the reason why this person's feeling so bad. I can tell from this person's symptoms list that they're pretty burnt out, and there's a few other things as well that's really, really quite worrying. And this person underneath is exhausted, and you have to feel that exhaustion in the beginning in order to heal it. It's not nice, but it's important, and it's what's needed. The Nutritional Balancing Program, will not turn you into Superman overnight with all this energy. It will take away the scaffolding and the layers that you've built up around yourself by using stimulants and carbohydrates and various other methods that people use for stimulants these days, and take that away, and you're kind of left quite naked, I suppose, with that exhaustion. I did a lot of enemas in the past and they were helpful. However, I was also peeing clear and feeling cold for a couple of hours after due to perspiration of water directly through the intestines. I'm not sure how they did the coffee enemas. A lot of people usually get cold doing coffee enemas because they use too much water. That's the common one. You shouldn't be using any more than 1.5 cups really, which is not that much. Overall, I felt they were unblocking my gut but lowering my energy by adding too much water inside. Again, it's a difficult one. If you add too much water, it can be a bit detrimental, but at the same time, the coffee enemas do kind of switch the body sometimes into parasympathetic state. It can release toxins, it can bring energy downwards, and all this means that the body's energy is a little bit lower. So again, it's a shift of mindset to realise that if the body's feeling sick, if the body's got brain fog or derealisation or depersonalisation or anxiety or depression, that's a lot of it is because the body inside is really burnt out, and the people are using stimulants to keep them going, but in reality the body's just crying inside to rest. And when you take that away, you will feel down and feel tired and exhausted, and it's a process that you need to surrender to, or in my opinion it's going to be very, very difficult to heal. A friend of mine, doctor in Chinese medicine, said that each enema takes away a bit of qi, and that they are better used sparingly. I don't know, I think it actually increases qi, especially if you're doing the pushing down exercise. The coffee bean's a very high qi bean. So again, it's different opinions, I suppose, but my qi is definitely improved, and I do coffee enemas every day, so I've got direct experience in that one. Alright, so that's that question finished. Another question here from someone who was on Accutane, and this person apparently, when he finished the Accutane, this person was shaking. I was wondering if you think it could relate to anxiety from being nutrient deprived, or do you think it could be a neurological problem from the pills? It has been persisting for 2 months. It's difficult to say really what it is. I know high copper toxicity can cause trembles. When the body is, high stress, cortisol, it can cause shakiness. Low nutrients can cause shakiness. I don't think it's a neurological problem that can't be. I don't think it's like a fixed neurological issue. In my opinion, I feel like that if you was to do the nutrition balancing program, it will kind of deal with it. But it would be arrogant of me to try to say that I know the answer, because there's not enough information there for me to get deep anyway. But I would say I wouldn't worry about it too much. I would just keep doing the program, and I think eventually it would deal with itself. Alright, so the final question is from a new client. So this person says, I feel like rubbish. Bear in mind that this client started the program yesterday. So he says, I'm doing everything right. Now, this person started the program yesterday, and it's too soon to be able to do everything right. So I'll probably say that it's the person's not doing everything right. That's not to put this person down, but just to be realistic. It took me about 6-7 months to do everything right. So I commend this person if they are already after 20 hours. My head has this weird feeling like it's not attached. I am having small panic attacks. So I'm not exactly sure what this person's initially done as they started the program. I would assume a little bit of the diet. And again, you need to watch my video, and it's called, and the same actually goes for the first question, how I felt in the beginning of the program. That's a good video to watch actually, because it just tells you how I felt in the beginning and explains why the body feels weird more often in the beginning of the program. So I'm not going to go into it too much on this one. I would say go and watch that video. It's called how I felt in the beginning of the program, and that'll explain to you more than what I can do in this video. In regards to the panic attacks, if you go to Dr. Wilson's website, if you type in on Google Dr. L. Wilson panic attacks, read that article. That's going to give you much more information on panic attacks than I can give you on this short video. But in general, you need to breathe. If you can go and get some calcium magnesium supplements from the shop before your supplementation comes, that would be good to take that. Go on some walks, take a swim, try and get to the bottom of why you're having the panic attack. I'm not too sure why. If it's a big problem, then you need to ring me up. But yeah, read his article. If you're still having panic attacks, give me a call. Alright, cool. Well, that is everything for today, and I'll catch up with you soon. Any questions? Send me an email.